Lewis Hamilton, Formula One's statistically most successful driver, is officially moving to the most historic and successful team in Formula One, Scuderia Ferrari. This news absolutely rocked the motorsport world, and given its significance to the sports world more widely, as it was rumoured and announced both in the space of a day. It's both a hugely surprising and somewhat unsurprising move in many ways, and it raises a huge number of questions. So let's take a look at what happened, what it means, and who it's going to affect. On Thursday morning, rumours began that Lewis could be leaving Mercedes and moving to Ferrari from 2025. This type of rumour floats around every off-season, but this time felt different, as reliable and official sources were saying that the deal was all but done. As the day went on, we learnt that all Mercedes team members had been invited to an unexpected meeting in their HQ in Brackley, supposedly to learn of Lewis's departure after the end of the 2024 season. It took until 7 PM UK time for the official word to come from Mercedes that Lewis would be leaving the team at the end of this year, and about 10 minutes later we got a short but sweet statement from Ferrari saying that Lewis would be their driver from 2025 on a multi-year contract. Mercedes' statement included quotes from both Toto and Lewis, with Toto saying, "Our relationship with Lewis has become the most successful the sport has seen, and that's something we can look back on with pride. Lewis will always be an important part of Mercedes motorsport history. We knew our partnership would come to a natural end at some point, and that day has now come." Lewis also reflected fondly at his time at Mercedes and said, "I'm so proud of what we have achieved together. Mercedes has been part of my life since I was 13 years old. It's a place where I have grown up, so making the decision to leave was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. But the time is right for me to take this step, and I'm excited to be taking on a new challenge." 2024 will be the final year of this iconic driver-team partnership with Lewis and Mercedes. The seen him earn 6 Drivers' Championships, take 82 wins, 148 podiums, and help the team to 8 Constructors' titles. But it's no secret that since the 2022 regulations came in, the team has lost their winning ways, and Lewis hasn't taken victory in a Grand Prix since Saudi Arabia in 2021. Each and every year since the regulation change, Mercedes have hoped that their car would be better, and it's in no way been bad, earning second in the Constructors last season, but it's in no way been the dominant winning machine that they've become so used to. Despite all this though, Lewis had signed a new contract with the Silver Arrows last summer, which would have seen him locked in for both this year and 2025. In their statement from Thursday, Mercedes made it clear that Lewis had exercised an exit clause in this contract to allow him to leave the team a year early. But why make this decision at this stage in the pre-season, when the W15 hasn't even been on track yet? Is there something fundamental with the W15's direction, or the direction of the team that Lewis didn't agree with? Or was the draw of the history of Ferrari simply too great to deny? Well, it's natural to speculate that Lewis knew that something was going wrong at Mercedes, and that's why he chose to leave now. Reports suggest that this had nothing to do with it, despite how the timing may make it look. Reportedly, the recent announcements of contract extensions for both their team principal Toto Wolff and their technical director James Allison also had nothing to do with trying to convince Lewis to remain at the team, because at that point Mercedes had no indication that Lewis was thinking of leaving. So it appears that this decision was motivated by Lewis alone, and Toto Wolff only became aware of this at their annual catch-up meeting at his home on Wednesday morning. Toto has said in the media since that he wasn't surprised by the move, but instead by the timing. So why now? Ultimately, only Lewis really knows why he decided to make this decision now, but we do know that he had been thinking of driving for Ferrari for a while. Back in 2019, when asked whether he'd like to drive for the Italian team, Lewis said it's about whether or not it's part of the game plan, rather than being tempted. But there's no doubt that the romance of driving for a team like Ferrari at least played some part in this. Beyond this though, Lewis's move could have more to it than just the racing. Lewis has wide philanthropic interests, and this is something we've seen through his Mission 44 Foundation, something that could be being supported by Ferrari as part of this new deal. Since the announcement, it's been reported that Lewis wanted to secure the future of his foundation as part of a new deal with the team. And as part of this Ferrari deal, we could see the creation of a joint investment fund worth over €250 million to make Lewis an ambassador of his own brand and to future-proof these projects. While all these factors were at play to some extent, the key reason behind Lewis's shock move seems to be the Mercedes contract he signed just last August. Reportedly, Lewis had entered these negotiations wanting a 3-year deal with Mercedes that would take him long into the new 2026 regulations. However, the Mercedes board were only willing to offer him a more short-term deal, and through negotiations they ended up with the 1+1 term, meaning that Lewis was their driver for 2024 with the option of remaining for 2025 should both parties agree. But in amongst the terms of these negotiations, we're hearing that the Mercedes board refused to make Lewis an ambassador for the brand until 2035, as Lewis had wanted. But in came John Elkann, Ferrari's president and importantly a friend of Lewis's, with an offer they had casually and socially discussed for many years. To drive for Ferrari with a long-term contract, with support for his foundation and a substantial cheque to go along with it. It seems that while Lewis had previously denied this on multiple occasions, this time he couldn't resist the desire for change and also the incredible terms of a potential Ferrari deal. We've since heard reports of the scale of financial support that John Elkann has offered to Lewis, which is said to be to the total of $400 million across his salary, bonuses and support for his Mission 44 Foundation. So while there is risk involved involved in this move, as there is with any move in Formula One, given that there are no guarantees of performance. The timing, the money, the support and the want for a new challenge all came at the right time for Lewis. This driver move is at a scale we've not seen for a long time, if ever, in Formula One, and as a result there are many complex moving pieces and knock-on effects, an important one being Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz has been at Ferrari since 2021 and is their most recent race winner, having taken victory at the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, which also made him the only non-Red Bull winner of last season. But following the news of Lewis's move, Carlos finds himself out of a seat. In a statement after the news broke, Carlos said, "We still have a long season ahead of us, and like always I will give my absolute best for the team and for the Tifosi all around the world, and that news about his future would be announced in due course." But of course we can't help but wonder how the dynamic between Carlos and Ferrari will work in their last season together, as he's always been a driver who challenges the strategic decisions of his team anyway, something that ultimately allowed him to take this win in Singapore. Carlos has been linked to a seat at Audi for 2026 when they enter Formula One, given that his dad Carlos Sainz Sr. has links with the team as he won their first Dakar rally last month. But this leaves him with a year in limbo, unless of course he was to move to stake F1 team to help the team as they transition into Audi. Another obvious option would be a direct switch to Mercedes, but he arguably wouldn't fill the team leader role there, as this by default would fall to George Russell. Carlos is no doubt craving being a team's long-term #1 driver, and currently Audi is the only place where he would be able to fill this role. So this brings up the question, who will go to Mercedes? Toto Wolff told media earlier this week that he would have been looking to secure Lando Norris or Charles Leclerc had they not just both signed long-term contracts. If Toto's looking to take the team in a useful direction, a risky yet promising option could be Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli has won both the German and Italian F4 titles, and also the Formula Regional European Championship. Because of this, he's been rushed up to Formula 2 for 2024, and should he take the F2 title this year, he'll no doubt attract the attention of Toto Wolff as a promising option for the Mercedes seat. A less risky yet perhaps more likely option could be Alex Albon. Albon's experience and his incredible driving meant that last season he almost single-handedly put Williams into P7 in the constructors' standings. But whether or not he wants to finish what he started at Williams by making them a front-running team again remains to be seen. Of course, as any big moves happen in Formula One, Fernando Alonso's name gets mentioned. Though he's now 42 and will be 44 by the time a call-up to Mercedes comes, he's performing at the highest level and is showing no signs of slowing down. He's shown how quickly and well he can adapt to a new car following his switch at Aston Martin last season, which saw him earn a podium for the team on his debut. But could a switch to Mercedes tempt him away from the Aston Martin project? Whoever takes over from Lewis will not only have big shoes to fill, but will also be directly competing against George Russell, who will become Mercedes' #1 man. How George will perform as a team leader at a team like Mercedes will be interesting to see. Although he's done it before at Williams, this will be a whole new challenge. As George is challenged to step up at Mercedes, there's no doubt that the team around him will change. Not only in terms of personnel, as many engineers are rumoured to be leaving with Lewis, but also in terms of feeling. Mercedes as a brand hasn't existed without Lewis Hamilton as their leader or ambassador for over a decade. And so what they look like in this new era will be fascinating to see, and will likely be shaped a lot by who they take on instead of Lewis. Similarly, we're about to enter a new era for Ferrari. A lineup of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc will be nothing short of incredible, but it does beg the question, how will this dynamic work? Though it's a star-studded lineup, this could lead to some tensions when it comes to battling for a win or even for a title if Ferrari haven't thought about whether they'd back their long-term champion-in-waiting Charles Leclerc or a 7-time champion and hundreds of $million signing in Lewis Hamilton. Ultimately, they now have the right team leader in place to manage this type of situation in Fred Vasseur. Fred has histories with both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, as he was Charles' first team principal in Formula One as he made his debut in 2018 with Alfa Romeo, and Fred and Lewis worked together when Lewis was back in GP2. While this could add to the complexity of this situation, both drivers clearly feel confident enough in Fred's leadership to have signed multi-year contracts, and they both feel that he's the right man to help the team back to a championship. Lewis's move to Ferrari, while confusing at the time, begins to make a little bit more sense when you consider all of these factors. Ultimately, every F1 driver's dream is to drive for the sport's most historic and successful team, and with diminishing results at Mercedes and a contract Lewis felt was less than ideal, it finally became the right time for him to realise a childhood dream. We still have 1 year left of Lewis at Mercedes before all of these changes and their rippling effects begin, but there's no doubt that this could be huge for both Lewis and for Ferrari, but also for many other drivers on the grid, as 2025's silly season has well and truly begun. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this in the comments, and share this video with someone you think would enjoy it, and as always, subscribe to Apex for more deep dives into the F1 world.